All right, this popped up just a little while ago, and it's taken me a while to kind of go through and learn as much as possible about the U.S. Russia, the ending of our nuclear treaty. And here's the headline on MSNBC: Analysts: U.S. ending nuclear treaty with Russia will cost billions. President Trump on Friday said the U.S. is suspending its involvement in the Intermediate Range Nuclear Force Treaty and would start the process of withdrawing entirely in 6 months. NBC News' Andrea Mitchell reports on why this will cost the global economy billions. Now, cost the global economy billions she's more or less, they're talking about a new age arms race. Here we go with her.
Reagan. And you can imagine the contrast here between Reagan saying trust but verify, and this administration saying we're getting out of it. We've found the cheating. We're not going to try to fix it.
Now, interesting thing there. Trust but verify, and then we found cheating. We're not going to try to fix it. We're going to pull out.
Canceling the treaty.
So if you're Europe right now, what's the worry?
Well, the worry is that this will start an arms race that will cost, as we say, billions of dollars. It's the kind of race that the U.S. can engage in, given the strong support for military spending here at home right now. But the fact is, the foreign policy of this president has been challenged, most recently by Mitch McConnell, in an overwhelming...
Now, what she's referring to there is Trump wanting to pull out of the Syrian conflict and just be done with it, since it is ostensibly just costing America money and lives in a region where we are, people in the U.S. are most hated.
Dissent from his policy to withdraw from Syria, from Afghanistan. Afghanistan, of course, is a NATO.
And also, a side note here, when Trump announced that he wanted to end the war in Syria, to bring U.S. troops out, to stop spending, to stop fighting and killing foreigners on foreign soil, even the Democrats, who normally want out of those types of wars, said, no, let's stay, let's continue fighting, let's continue supporting a civil war, and just let's stay.
Obligation
that's
as
where
well.
we are now.
So there's a lot of concern in Europe that this president, his advisors, are ignoring alliances, are not reliable allies by announcing withdrawal from.
Now, with Europe, the European Union is trying to, under Germany's rule, trying to form a separate European army, a European force. They're trying to unify themselves as what we would think of as a single nation, with member states all under the helm of Germany. Currently, you see the Brexit happening. You see Italy pulling out of a lot of things. Hungary. Several European nations are coming out from under the EU. And as far as NATO is concerned, the U.S. has pulled back its own funding to try and force member nations to pay their fair share, but to take more direct part in it. It can't just be a U.S.-funded treaty against Russia. It has to be a group effort.
Syria, for instance, on Twitter, leading to the resignation.
Now, Twitter, if you don't know out there, is a hate mob of outraged people. And I believe it's probably the lowest form of social media, and the blue check marks on Twitter are just some vile people from time to time.
Of his defense secretary, Jim Mattis. All of this has caused turmoil around the world, and there is real concern that this is just another example of the U.S. willing to go it alone.
Yes. So we're going to stop there. So essentially, she's just referring to an arms race. That is very strange. You can go to YouTube and you can very easily find the actual press briefing.
Good morning, everyone.
Pompeo, I believe.
At the core of President Trump's foreign policy are a few very, very simple truths. The security of the American people must be our greatest consideration.
That's the American First policy.
The agreements to which we enter must serve American interests, and countries must be held accountable when they break the rules. For years, Russia has violated the terms of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty without remorse.
Now, that's the crux of this. They've been violating it, so the U.S. is finally, it's not working, so we're going to get out of it. I've been going through, just trying to figure out what people believe. Here's one of the things they're talking about. U.S. and Russia are stockpiling up missiles and nukes for a different kind of war. These are the small, what you would refer to as battlefield nukes, and I believe this is the place that they say they are remodeling, upgrading their missile bases, which they're not supposed to do under the treaty. And you see different thing here about the Texas Panhandle. Americans are starting to work with smaller nuclear weapons. Battlefield nukes is what they're terming them on. Trump administration withdrawals from nuclear treaty, accuses Russia of violations. These have been going on for a while. Russia has jeopardized United States security interests. So all this falls into, well, it's hard to, it's strange to say it, but Trump is very definitely tough on Russia. He is not one of those guys who can be upfront in people's faces, but when he's out on his own, he is very tough, very much into what's going on. The Russian government has had endless opportunities to change their bad behavior and has proven its disinterest in doing so. James Reich, Idaho, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the time has come to set the treaty aside and develop alternative avenues towards the security and peace once provided. Security the treaty once provided. So there's more articles. Russia will now be able to turn the United States and NATO essentially say we need to defend ourselves. I mean, this is the thing. Russia's already doing it. They're not doing it publicly, but it seems to be happening in the background. Evidence seems to support that, and we move forward. U.S. first low-yield warheads roll off the production line. These are what they are calling battlefield nukes. The phrase is, we only nuked you a little. Here it is. Hey, all you nuclear powers out there, we're just going to trust and recognize that this is just a little nuclear weapon, and we won't retaliate with all you've got. Han wrote in a tweet, remember, the U.S. intends to nuke you a little bit. Now, Melissa Han of the Earth Fortune Foundation pointed out several adversaries who would have no way of knowing in full force Trident being fired at them or its low-yield cousin. This is a person going for a real particular story. However, the smaller nuclear weapons, if that is to be the modern arms race, I guess that's what we're going to have to deal with. I'm not really one for weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons or otherwise. Currently, you'll see the U.S. The breakdown of the 18, what they estimate everybody has, 6,500, 200, 380, and 6,800. You see the U.S. and Russia far and above all other countries, with approximately, 15,000. I don't know why, I don't know how this will escalate as far as anything else. It seems like both of us are armed to the teeth. Trump ditching the Reagan era, the Reagan legacy, and endangers the world. If Russia's already not following it, and Newsweek and most left-leaning Democrat groups hate Reagan, it's very odd that they're using him. You saw it in the MSNBC, you see it here on Newsweek. If the treaty's already been broken, not being enforced, and we've tried time and time again, it seems like scrap the treaty, do something else, go through the UN, but however, the treaty itself doesn't work. What Trump do is follow President Reagan and Obama's goal of limiting all nuclear weapons on a step-by-step basis. This means what Trump should do is this means also continuing the START treaty, which Obama signed with Russia to reduce strategic nuclear warheads, and building on that success. Now, if what they say is true and this is not happening and Obama's treaty didn't work, then what's the point? If it's not working, why would you continue something that Obama started even if it doesn't work? Again here, rest in peace, intermediate nuclear treaty. U.S. withdrawing from the nuclear arms race. A nuclear treaty and arms race might be next. All this has come out here Tomorrow, the United States will suspend its obligations. So withdrawing. This is one of those things where it could be a tactic. This could be the whole point, is to force Russia back to the table to actually do something. Yeah, I mean, we just don't know. I mean, this is the first day it's been pulled out, everything. The treaty doesn't prohibit the U.S. from fielding and testing cruise missiles that can be shot from planes, ships, submarines, only land. Increasingly, America stockpiled those weapons, then might pressure Moscow financial and military to come to the table and discuss a way to improve the accord on both sides. So what they're arguing is if Trump leaves the deal, the U.S. will lose all leverage with Russia. So basically, if we have a deal that's not working, that's not doing anything, the Vox and the traditional media says continue it and try and use it as a negotiation tactic, whereas Trump is pretty much sure that since it's not working, cut it, do something else, and move on. That wasn't actually part of this. U.S. ending its decades-old nuclear arms treaty with Russia. And again, Russia has been violating this Russia has not honored the agreement. We're going to terminate the agreement. We're going to pull out, he said. So, pulling out of the agreement that they're not following anyway, and we're going to move forward. And the U.S. allies brace for Cold War era nuclear deal. So it's ending. Unfortunately, we have no signs of breakthrough. NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg said Thursday afternoon, conference in Romania, we must prepare for a world without the treaty. The INF treaty bans missiles between 310 and 3,400 miles. Washington and NATO claim a new Russian system violates the limits. Moscow has denied the accusations in the system, known as that has a maximum range of just 298 miles. So, yeah, there you go. Even NATO's in on it. And this always brings up the idea that Trump not being tough on Russia, which is a common theme in the U.S. However, apparently he, other than the face-to-face meetings where him and Putin seem to get along, and he just doesn't want to provoke the other leader, he tends to always be pretty harsh on him. Obama basically just set out and let Russia invade the Crimea and didn't do anything. And then Trump came in. Sanctions were imposed on Russia for the invasion. Trump approved the sale of lethal weapons to the Ukraine, what Obama didn't do. He has fired missiles at Syrian military sites, killing Russians. He has imposed sanctions and expelled Russian nationals, something that Obama did not do. And it's just very strange. What we have is a president which all his actions show one thing, and then he ends up discussing being nice to the actual president of Russia, which I guess is what makes him upset, is that he doesn't outwardly attack him constantly, which right now through a lot of the Democratic parties, they want to emulate the communism that Russia had. Election meddling, perhaps most contentious issue for the relationship between Trump and Putin is the allegation of interference by the Kremlin in the 2016 presidential election, where Russia spent approximately $5 to $10 million in a $2 billion election, or $6 billion election, to sway it. So if you have $6,500 and someone spends $5 for you, which is the success? The $5 that someone spent outside, or the $6,500 you spent yourself? Remember, that's in millions. So $6.5 billion in the election, and $5 million came from Russia. And they got a few million hits in social systems, which gets billions of hits per day. Yeah. So heavy sanctions against Russia, Syria, walk back, indictments that the government's going through.
Aaron from the Rundown. Do you guys have the e-news app yet? Well, if you don't, get
Fast.
Ugh, I hate autoplay. GOP-led intel ends with no Russia collusion. You know, these are all the things that are going on. We're just seeing measure after measure after measure where one side says Trump is bad, he's fallen in Russia. Oh, look, Trump's lifting sanctions against Russian oligarchs' companies. Congressional Democrats tried to block. Treasury Department has announced sanctions against, I can't say that, 6 other oligarchs, companies in April's retaliation for Russia's malign activity around the world. Most of the sanctions went into effect, including those personally, but the imputation was repeatedly delayed against Mr. whoever's giant aluminum company, Rusal, as well as 2 linked firms, including EN Plus, holding company that owned much of Rusal. The companies financed a sophisticated legal and lobbying campaign arguing the sanctions would disrupt the aluminum market and damage countries in the United States and allied countries. Yeah, and clarified the goal of the sanction was to change behavior of him and not put Rusal out of business, given the company's pivotal role as a global aluminum supplier. Look at this. The Treasury Department announced a deal last month to lift the sanctions in exchange for restructuring it said would reduce his control and ownership of the companies. Yet a confidential, legally binding document detailing the arrangement showed that he would and his allies would retain a majority share of the companies. So the guy owns the companies, and his ties don't actually fall into a lot of the Trump legal Russia. His ties fall back on Manafort, who was convicted of, well, several things. So basically the U.S. is trying to take over and dictate how foreign companies operate because we don't like what they're doing. And again, it's really not going to amount to anything because when we go in and attack the said in a statement, a victory for U.S. sanctions policy, successfully punishing the target, but not at the expense of shareholders, employees, or the wider market. So we try and punish a company because we believe that our elections are sacrosanct when we pour and other countries pour hundreds of millions of dollars into our elections. It's just when Russia does it and Hillary loses, it becomes this massive, huge issue. Sorry, I'm off on a different tangent now. But again, Mr. President Trump has been pretty hard on Russia over time, and it just seems like Russia's had time after time after time has just decided not to go along with the existing treaty, which could just be Putin, could be something else, and Trump's decided that this is not working, scrap the deal, start over, and that's where we're at today. Please like and comment, whatever you want to do, around, above, below. Subscribe. Like I said, I'm just trying to work through this, but as of now, my opinion is that the U.S. withdrawing from the deal seems natural, seems like the right idea. If they're already not going to follow it, it's time to change, do something else. If the legislation treaty isn't working, let's move on. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great day.